So here's all the questions and stuff for using ARC. I mean, this is what I do when I use Canvas stuff, because I always have more questions about it.
Exactly.
So I just log in to find it. I went to a Flex workshop in January that introduced ARC, and so I tried it out in my class this semester. Some issues with ARC, maybe to know about first, is it doesn't work the same way on Google Chrome, like on Chromebooks, as far as what you can and can't record. I forget, I couldn't do screen recording on my Chromebook, but I could do the video cam. I could do one, but not the other.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so fun quirks. Another thing is sometimes it doesn't want to work. And so you just have to switch browsers entirely. So these are things I tell my students, right? I was like, beware of this. Like, don't get mad and frustrated if it's not working. Just like close your browser, open an entirely different one. It seems to work better in Firefox than Chrome, for sure. And the other issue is closed captioning, because ARC is creating videos. And it does actually, right, if you go add captions, there are steps to do it. Like, this is the one that we don't have access to, but maybe we're going to get access to it. It's not very clear how much of ARC MiraCosta has yet, which can be a problem. So I don't make my videos with ARC. I still make them elsewhere and upload it and let YouTube do the captions for me, just because YouTube captions faster than any other service that I've used, like within an hour or less, they're done. So this is like one issue with it currently that hopefully gets resolved soon. Okay, so the way I use it in my class, well, I had students try it out. Look at all my students, they're lovely. The very first week, and do intro videos, just saying hi to one another and introducing themselves. They were all in like the 3-minute range, and it was for them to start figuring out what ARC did before we used it for an actual assignment. And so then I want to say by the 3rd week, they did video presentations. I use presentations lightly because it's more sharing, because that's what we do in the on-ground class. And it's with their primary sources. There's like one of my students that was up here, this one. So we do a propaganda poster assignment, and I have them do the screen capture, and then they talk through their initial thoughts and ideas for the primary source that they chose. And I put them in groups of 5 or 6, and so they watch everyone else's videos and leave 2 additional comments, like observations, and then 2 additional questions based on the observations that were made in the video to help their classmates keep thinking about that primary source before they start doing some of the more complicated stuff with it. And it's similar for, I think, 3 of the papers in the class. We do primary sources where they're all bringing in something entirely different. And so they're just walking it through and then helping each other out. The reason that I chose to do or bring the video in this way is because I know a lot of students, especially in the early stages, are better at talking through their ideas than writing through them. And there are so many spaces where they're doing like writing with these at these early moments in their drafting process. And so this creates a different sort of modem for them to do that with, which is important. And students, because I have students evaluating the course every 2 weeks as to like the most helpful thing and least helpful thing, they like the videos. They thought it was cool to engage with their peers in a different way. And they also like to see here the way that their peers are approaching the papers, because it makes them feel more confident that they're like on the right track, even though they're all doing something slightly different or very different. So they do like it, and as a change from all the reading that does take place when they're looking at what their peers are doing. Yes.
We have time to look at like an example of an intro or the paper video.
Sure. Well, here's the one my student did. This is really great. Now the screen came up. So there's a couple things you can do when you share with ARC. You can set up the comment feature. So while the video is playing, students can comment on it. I'm actually gonna go back. they did it with some, so I lost all of them again. Okay, so here's an intro video. And so like all the blue dots are where people have commented while he was talking and introducing himself. And so when it's playing, the comments will pop up on the screen, but they also all get logged down here. So you can go back and read through it. And this was like a veteran, so there was a lot of like, thank you for your service stuff that was coming in with his, as he was introducing himself. So that's one thing. And I did that with some of them. Others, they enabled it. It depends on what the students want to do. Some of them just want to write a discussion board like response as opposed to commenting on the videos, but others want to comment on the videos. And then down at the bottom of this, I don't know why it shows me some student videos and not others. I have no idea for that. So how to make a video in Canvas, right? Every piece of technology I ask students to use for my online class in Canvas, I have a how-to video, even Google Docs, because some students just don't know. And so this one, it was kind of weird because I was using Screencast to make it, and then like Screencast comes up like the exact same thing. And so it was interesting making it, but I had to have like 2 separate browsers because my computer was freaking out, but it worked, right? And so I talked them through the different steps in that in order to make a video.
Cool.
And I mean, if this like thing wasn't here, you have like your record and stuff, little buttons over here.
But you can minimize it, I
Make it
think.
smaller.
Yeah.
You also can do this within discussion board as like one of the little options, and students can just like make it from there. They don't have to go into ARC, right? Like wherever you want them to post it, you can have it set up there. So it's been fun playing with it this semester and seeing how it works, and students seem to like this element.
Awesome. So any questions or yeah?
Are you interested in sharing your how-to video?
Yes.
No, I think my
Yes.
students
Because I like seeing how other people explain stuff.
Yeah.
I might do it differently.
Right.
It's helpful.
That's cool.
It's clearly working for you.
Yes.
So, and what we can do also is Shelly, if you are willing to share your how-to video, you can email me the link, and then early next week, all the links we get from this, I'll just put in one spot. Yeah.
Do you want me to share it now or just send you the link?
Why don't you send me the link?
Okay.
Yeah, if that's okay. Is that okay? Cool. Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Any other questions or?
Most of my technology like related how-to videos, I keep them in like the 60 to 90 second range, like very basic, like this is how you do it.
Right.
And then hopefully that's enough, but I don't want to go on and on.
Yeah. And this 202 class is a on-site class or an online class?
Online class.
Okay, cool.
I have a section of both,
Right.
which also is nice because it helps me figure things out. And
Totally.
one that's not working in the other, it's
Yeah.
good.
Are your on-site students doing these also with ARC?
We've played with ARC once. We used it differently during class time, but
Yeah.
no, because
Okay.
they just do it in front of the classroom.
Right, right.
And that's something that students have commented on with those presentations where it's like capturing the screen is they're nervous at first, but then we're in class, they'd have to be up in front of people. They were hidden, right?
Yeah.
Nobody was seeing them.
Right.
And so it made them more confident and
Right.
having that option. Yeah.
Cool. Right on. Yep. So, Tyrone?
All right, that'll work. My presentation is very low tech, but part of the invitation today was something that fills up the whiteboards with cool stuff. So that's what I'm going to talk about. It's a stick figure storyboard activity, and it's with the book A Dream Called Home by Reina Grande. It's a new book. It came out last year. Part of the magic of the activity is it can work with any book. It works especially well with this book. Yeah. Just the context, it's the sequel to her memoir, The Distance Between Us. What's cool, it starts when she's driving out of Pasadena to move to Santa Cruz because she's a transfer student from Pasadena City College to UC Santa Cruz, and all she can think about is turning the car around and going back home because she's so scared. And the first 170 pages of the book are just about what it means to be a transfer student from a community college to a four-year university, trying to make that big adjustment. Students related to it really well.
Cool.
All right, so the activity started with a little bit of scaffolding for this section. So it's covering 3 chapters from the middle of the book. Saudade is her cat. Francisco is her really crappy boyfriend. And then the other part of the chapter was how did she buy her first home? It was actually through this special program where she became a middle school teacher, and then she was eligible to be in this lottery to get a discount house if it's close to the school she works at, and she won it. So then I show the students the idea of a stick figure storyboard, which is, it's not based on glamorous art. It's just based on, you're telling a story using stick figure drawing to illustrate what happens in the story. So I show them one example, one with 6 panels. They can write 1 panel, they can write 6 panels, 9 panels, however many they need. And then I broke up the 3 chapters in sort of chunks of about 3 or 4 pages that were fairly digestible. And then I put the students into groups. I think it was like 2 to 3 people per group. And so they had to make a stick figure storyboard for their section of the text. And then with it, they had to write a narrative description, a short one of what was happening. And then they had to pick a quote from the book that also came from their page range that fit what was happening in their storyboard. And then you end up with this all across the room, which I liked. And you get stick figures. So this is Reina Grande teaching her students how to dance folklorico for the Cinco de Mayo festival at the middle school. In terms of the pedagogy, it helps students focus on what was important, because they have to isolate that. It helps them visualize the reading. And then for students who are more artistic and visually inclined and maybe shyer in sharing and discussion, it helps them shine and have a day where they can showcase skills that maybe aren't on display typically in class. Sometimes the art is, you know, it's not a Van Gogh, it's not a Picasso or something. It's stick figure. Sometimes students, you know, they have to be creative. Like, how do I show she's thinking about running away? I'm like, well, how would you? What's in the book right there? Well, I don't know. It just says she's going to run away. Well, if you were thinking that, where would you go? Well, I'd be by myself, maybe in my room. Like, okay, well, draw it, right? Cool. And then keep going when we get to the end. Sometimes it ends up being like a beautiful comic book worthy illustration. There's always at least one group that pulls off something like this. Yeah. So it's her first home. It's in a bad neighborhood. She's pregnant. There's airplanes always flying over the top of the house, which is why it was half price and no one wanted it. But then they also have the quote. I thought it was hilarious. One of life's jokes to send me the opposite of the dream house I had fantasized about. So this is not her dream house, but it's the house she got. Yeah. And then the narration was she was a lucky winner of a 2-bedroom house. The house wasn't in good shape and in a bad neighborhood by LAX with planes flying over every few minutes. Right? So that's the outcome. And I guess the technology part is what's cool is I can go around the room afterwards, take pictures of the different panels, put them into a file, put that onto Canvas. And then when we talk about ideas for writing the essay, students will often reference the pictures and they'll say, I have an idea. It's about the picture with the house and the plane flying over it. And then I'll know what they're talking about. And then they'll know, oh, I can go to page 190 and look at the quote and look at that section again because I want to write about her dream house that wasn't really a dream house. Nice. All right, that was it.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any conversation we could clap for him. Totally clap. Any responses? Do you do something similar?
I imagine you could do a similar activity with like even like an academic essay, right? Like having to like a graphic organizer kind of thing, and have them use like their artistic abilities. So that's really cool.
Have you ever allowed them to actually use the images in the project rather than the image as a way of getting back into the book? In other words, the image itself serves as support now.
That's a
Right?
great idea.
And it's connected to the direct quotation. So the information is there.
I haven't done that, but I love that idea. I think I will start encouraging students to do that. That's a cool idea.
I was gonna say another, like a digital version of this, like you did this one day, but you wanted to mix it up. You made a Google Doc with a bunch of table and stuff, and you can do Google image searches for the images that capture what's happening in the book, and then they're copying and pasting into the table.
Yeah.
So it's a little faster, but it captures it in a different way.
Yeah. I do a version of that activity chat that you described. That works really well too. That's also effective. Yeah, or sometimes it's even short videos. I'll ask them to find that represent what's happening in the book. Yeah, great ideas. Thanks.
I've done one when I taught English 50, where I had students, I assigned like 3 related articles and they all picked their favorite one and they got into different groups. And it kind of started like this, like isolate a quote you think is important and then say why you think it's important above that quote. And then try to either ask a question or articulate some, I'm basically asking them to build a paragraph, but it's like, it ended up being like 6 groups, 2 groups chose the same one and they do it across all the boards. And at the end I go, look, you wrote an essay. And I go, and I kind of circle stuff and they're like, oh my, yeah, yeah. It's cool. Awesome. Right on. Let's see who's next. Where did I almost spread out? Oh yes, thank you. That's it. Thank you. Okay, Audacity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so like Curry said, I'm not going to go into the nuts and bolts of Audacity, but basically what Audacity is a free video audio editor, and I'll what I hit, so where did my thing tab go? There it goes. Okay, so let's see. I'll show you. So what I use Audacity for is my students create. I'll just play this while I talk.
Stop. You want to
So I have students create an audio essence essay in terms of describing their literacy narrative. So one part of the assignment is that they write out a literacy narrative. And the other component is that I ask the student to go interview each other, and they conduct a 45-minute interview and they record their responses in terms of reading and writing as the focus. And after they're done with that interview, I ask them then to compose, using that interview as a primary text, an audio essay. Some people might think of it in terms of like podcasting, but I found that I have to designate what kind of podcast I'm talking about, because oftentimes they'll think of like Joe Rogan, or they'll think of The Breakfast Club, where it's more of an interview style and less edited. So, I'll say, no, I'm thinking more of in the line of like a Serial, and I'll introduce them to Serial, or like Radio Lab, or This American Life. What's funny is you make this, and I've said this before, but listening to NPR for the last 20 years, I make this assumption that my students listen to NPR and that they're familiar with like Radio Lab and
Totally.
Shore and all this stuff. And I talk to them about it, they're just like, what is this NPR that you talk about? Right? Like, I'm like, one day, remember this moment, you're gonna get a degree, you're gonna be listening to NPR one day and tell Professor Stone told you that this day is coming. So what you're able to do with, as you can watch this video, what you're able to do with the Audacity is simply, I'll show you when it looks like it's working. You take multiple audio files, here's one. You take, this is a stereo channel, right? So you create multiple audio files, and so then they'll upload their interview, and then what they can do is they can section out and edit, splice, like portions of the interview that they like. And then I asked them to record transitions. I asked them to record introductions, their thesis. And they do that not by just improvising into their speaker, right, into the recorder, but we actually write it out. And then they test it. And then they'll layer multiple tracks. And then you can also, if you can see, like this one up here, see that one in the corner? That's having running a track in the background. So you can play music in the background. So you can layer all these different tracks, right? And I asked them to compose an audio essay based on some experience with literacy. So the way that we employ it is that we use it just simply in the discussion posts. So, and this is kind of cool that Curry asked me to do this. This one was just due, whatever, on March 13th. So here I asked the students to upload, using their Google Drive, they'll link to the Google Drive and embed it into Canvas, and they'll also link their alphabetic essay. So I'll let you listen, because I think the best thing about this is like what students can do with it. And check this out. My how-to videos are YouTube it. But that, I mean, basically, on the side I have some that like, hey, that I've picked out that are really effective. But they come into this classroom space, and in the first 8 weeks, I have them do this audio essay. And in the second 8 weeks, we do a video essay. And 9 out of 10 students have no real working knowledge of audio editing, right? Or any of that kind of stuff. And you'll be completely surprised about the level of that they can produce. It's pretty cool. So here's Randy.
Literacy means just learning how to read and write. But let me show you how literacy saved my life. Hard to find comfort when there's none around you. You love your family, but truly they can't even ground you. You threw your anchor in this liquor that's pulling you down quick and thinking you could swim forever, but drowning was the elixir. You ain't worth shit. Thankfully, through literacy, I am able to express myself through this song. What you just heard was a small piece of the constant darkness I engage within my conscious mind. Without literacy, I wouldn't have been able to coexist with this darkness and express what my internal conflict felt like. In the past, I would abuse alcohol in hopes to drown out voices of depression and low self-esteem. But alcohol only worked until I suffered a car accident while under the influence. I could have killed someone. I could have died behind the wheel. A part of me did die in the accident. But the part of me who survived coexists with the darkness within. Through literacy, I am able to live again through expressing myself in music. Damn, the darkness in me that I battle with. Time to take the gloves off and let this pain sit. I can't forgive, can't relieve, and I can't forget. The tears falling down my face as I coexist. But Pac said after dark night's a bright day. I think I understand them ever since I walked away. Nothing's easy in this life, but I'm still living. Thankful for these opportunities to keep giving. See it leaking from my face onto my phone screen. I'm writing personal with that, people don't know me. Contemplating suicide, you know I'm still alive. Never let that on my heart, but they got another charge. Literacy saved my life by allowing me the ability to breathe again when expressing emotions such as the ones heard in this song titled Darkest Liquor. In an interview about literacy with one of my fellow classmates, I recall my earliest memory of discovering joy in literacy. I remember that when I was called on, we were like getting called on to read. When I got called on, I remember that I just started like reading, and I found that the emotion and the speed that I was able to read out loud, it kind of gave me a sense of like joy, as if I was like achieving something. And it was just a good feeling. It was very weird, but ever since that moment, it was like I kind of realized that I like to read in particular out loud. Literacy grew from being something joyful to do to saving me from the darkness within myself. Ever since I've been able to coexist with my darkness within, I've also been able to express the light I possess. Literacy saved me by giving me the tools to acquire the ability to freestyle. Freestyling is another form of musical expression I've grown with and helps me release. I do me, and that's the way that it's supposed to be. Releasing the beats is how I speak with poetry, making sure my focus be giving up my knowledge to college, because education I'm chasing all over. See, it's been 10 years since I've been up in a classroom, but I'm ready to get it in when I do what I do. When I'm feeling it true, I make a move. This is something that I'm giving and speaking it out to you. Yeah. The ability to read and write allowed me to become the artist that I am today. Without literacy, none of these artistic outlets would have been possible. To share and potentially save those who suffered from similar traumatic experiences as me is now my goal. I strive to provide a beacon for those battling alcoholism or low self-esteem to help them know they are not alone. Significantly, literacy gave me purpose in life after saving me from my own descent into demise. I send these words to those in need, to those who feel trapped in following the ways of society. Once you learn to read and write, freedom will forever be with you.
I'm blessed, I'm so blessed, I'm so blessed. Yeah, blessed, I'm so blessed, I'm so rich. Slick, got a home, got a check. Make my own bread, get respect. Check.
So you see what Randy did there in terms of the different layering of components, and then the essence that was created all the way through, that thesis that drove itself all the way through. And we saw the way that he incorporated evidence in terms of analyzing the rap of his own music, in addition to the primary source of that interview that he created with his student partner, and then made a cohesive essay out of it. And so you can see the different layering of techniques. And what is really cool about this is it reflects for the student the writing process in a different mode, right? Because so what this is obviously the culmination of for the unit or the project, but we can see that through the discussions, this is the final draft. There have been audio draft 3, audio draft 2, audio draft 1. So in this space, Randy may have been able to, in audio draft 1, if we listen to it, it's very different and boring. I told him, that's so boring. I don't know, that was the technical term. It was boring, right? And so he went back, and then we had a classroom workshop in terms of like the audio and immediate feedback. And then they're partnered up together, and they bring in their headphones, and they listen to each other and provide that feedback. And so we're continually engaging in the revision process, and then they have that real audience. And so, and then there's also, to go with it, what goes with it also is the alphabetic testing. But the coolest thing about this is the way that the students really, really get to identify the transitions of moving from idea to idea to idea. Many times we encounter in the writing, it feels like there's no transition. It goes, horizontal to vertical, to upside down to back to vertical, right? There's no, and they can really understand the idea of moving from one idea to the next to this audio component.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
I have a two-part question. The first part is, what are the criteria by which you evaluate a project like this? And then the second part is more of kind of a refinement of that. And that is, in your evaluation, do you make sure, or I don't even know if that's the right way of saying it, are you careful about how you evaluate their technological prowess versus the skills that you see are directly connected to your course? Or it might be that technological prowess becomes a skill. I'm not sure. But do you see where I'm headed there?
Technological aptitude is integrated. There's an expectation. Is it expected at the beginning? No. But as the student becomes more familiar with either iMovie or Audacity, they get the immediate feedback from their partners that says, hey, there's something you got to do some volume leveling. There's some overlap in terms of your transitional space, so that they become more adept at utilizing this mode. So that in the way that I evaluate it, I use Cynthia Self's. She has a rubric, and we talk about, is there an essence here, right? And then we'll give you feedback. Is there, like, you got a thesis here, you got some kind of argument, is there something that's going to hold this thing together? The second thing that we then talk about is transitions, moving from idea to idea. And then finally, the analysis in terms of your essay, your evidence incorporation. So we look at those and the tech component. Because without the tech component, and without the tech component, that it's like the grammar of peer reviewing alphabetic essays, right? Where the students really gravitate to, you need a period here, or there's a comma necessary here, right? So it's a component that runs concurrently with the other three components, right? And it is assessed because it assists with a fluid presentation of ideas, right? And a way to present one's meaning. Or, yeah.
Does that suggest that the instructor, to use the analogy of grammar, does that suggest that the instructor then has to have a thorough understanding of the grammar of the medium by which this communication is happening?
I think that because we live in this modern age that we're continually bombarded with and familiar with produced and edited information in a variety of different forms. So it comes much more naturally, at least for my students and myself, than these what sometimes seem very site-specific forms of structure in terms of, for example, academic English, right? Because students are much more familiar with listening to podcasts, watching YouTube, highly edited YouTube videos, going to the movies. They kind of have almost like an intuition of how to do that, right? But I think what's more separated is when we begin talking about like grammatical and syntactical structures. Yeah. It's more of a challenge for them.
Well, but I think the other approach is you can approach any grammar prescriptively. I have the knowledge, here's how it's done correctly, right? Or you could approach it descriptively, right? And we do that with sentence level grammar. We say, notice these sentences, knows what's going on, what's the difference? Oh, it's the comma, this is where it's placed. I could imagine teaching a course like this where it's, what are the grammars of podcasting, or what are the conventions of podcasting? Begin that way, and then an analysis of the medium will also provide the skill sets and the conventions that we would adopt ourselves into. And that could be a constantly, populated sort of list of things.
And that's what we do. We'll listen to like a radio lab and say, take this thing apart, the radio lab, take it apart. How do they, because this isn't just one track, right? What are all the different components? Identify the components, and then talk about how they might have composed this particular track and outline it. And then they kind of get a sense, start breaking it down, listening to it, and then it influences their own decision.
Yeah, I really like this. I was thinking have students take a look at understanding, okay, if we're to think of this podcasting as a genre, then what are the conventions that we could come up with? And that's class project. But I was actually, as I was listening to you, and I was like, this assignment really hits a lot of different dots, right? It's using literacy, teaching students to use literacy as a form of intellectual inquiry. It's expanding your understanding of reading and writing, right, beyond the GE requirement. It's demystifying academic writing. And it's also, I think, in terms of culturally responsive teaching, it's like Gerald Graff says, let's use what students bring into the classroom and make that their resource, right, to teach them academic literacy. So I really like this.
I have a question that's sort of practical, or just sort of just one thing I'm interested in is I really like that this is changing away from typing into sort of more audio and speaking one. But I was curious as to how you adapt this assignment, because it seems pretty heavy for students who might have learning disabilities, specifically students who might be deaf. How do you transition this assignment to sort of work with those students?
When that situation arises, I'll have to confront that. That's, you know what I mean? Yeah, that's going to be clearly, we're going to have to revise it in a particular way. Maybe we can move from the audio component and move it more strictly into a visual, right? Or to work with the student wherever they, the space that they occupy. And I think we could find an accommodation that would both reflect the spirit of the project as well as not hinder the student because of their condition.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah.
One more. Do you allow choice here, or is everybody doing a literacy narrative with this particular software? Or is it they could do?
So if you're an iOS person, you're using GarageBand if you have an old one, or you're using iMovie, right? And many students are totally really familiar, like an Apple product, they're going to use iMovie or they're going to use the old school GarageBand. This is for PC users, Audacity, and we have Audacity because I want to make sure that we have both of the audio editing softwares available to the students, other than just through their own laptop or at home. Both of these softwares are available to them through the library. And there's a more complicated ones that Adobe has that they're free to use too.
Through the library, right?
Through the library, yeah. All the computers in there have it.
And I just want to add to this one before we, Chad, you're up next. What? So we acquired as a department these two laptops, and I'm going to show the people in Zoom. This is one, and the other one you're watching from, and two high quality headsets. So kind of for these sorts of projects. And what's also installed on these is Audacity. So let me grab the screen back. Yeah. So let me get rid of this. Sure. So this is what's installed on these computers. So that's Audacity right there. The other thing that's installed, well, you'll see it in a second, is Dragon Dictation. Have you used Dragon Dictation before? Yeah?
Yeah. It was interesting.
So Dragon Dictation is a speech-to-text software. And so thinking of different ways into an essay for students, right? And especially students who are verbal processors. With this really high-quality microphone, you can even set it up so that you're talking to a student about what they want to write about. And with that microphone recording, everything you say is going to be put into text. And at the end of that, the student can have access to that document, delete what you're saying, and have left over all of their claims and all of their transitions and the bones, so rather than, because this happens all the time, right? When I was talking to you, I knew what I wanted to do. When I got home, and so with Dragon Dictation, there's that chance that they get to take with them everything that they said, right? So these two laptops are just sitting in my office with these headsets. So if you've got like a lab set up for the day or a workshop set up for the day where you think in that station when they're one-on-one with me, I could set this up and for those students record that kind of content, just let me know and I'll make sure that these are available.
And sort of on that note, because this is something I used to do all the time because I'm much better at speaking ideas than writing them, is also your phones have voice memos. So I always encourage my students who are good at talking through ideas to just sit down and just talk into your phone for a while and then go back and listen to it. And then the sentences that you think are really good, copy those down.
Yes.
And it's a good way of just like talking yourself into writing.
That's right. Yeah, we all have these in our pockets pretty much, right?
Yeah. Cool. Sorry, I'm trying to find something that's relevant to Jake. Because Jake's presentation was really good. On the fly.
Yeah. Do you want a minute or two? Okay. So we need to share your screen again, Chad. So I'm going to stop sharing. I can set it up for you.
So mine's super simple, right? It's just like another way to deliver announcements, reminders, whatever to students. And then if you just don't feel like writing a bunch of stuff, this is a really efficient way to do it, right? Okay, so this is my Canvas course, right? It's supposed to look like a smartphone. So just announcements.
Online course or
this is on ground, but the online course looks the same. Okay. Yeah. So I have these weekly notes and hints right here, and the recommendation is that students start with the notes, and then they check the syllabus, and then they go into the module, right? And that's kind of the sequence that we use. But anyways, the class as a whole, basically when I build my class, it's just one page. Like I'm the opposite of Curry. Curry uses a ton of pages. I use one page and it's just the shell and everything else is connected to modules or to Google Docs because it's really easy to work with Google Docs as we know. So anyway, my notes and hints they're Google, it's a Google Doc. And it just looks like this. And this new one, I did this while we're sitting down right now, right? And I did that just to emphasize the idea that it's super, super easy to do this. So how many of us have used Meme Generator or something similar? Okay, so just really easy technology, right? Is it this one? Okay, so if you've never used it, like, you know, you just type in whatever and then do this, and then you can take a screenshot of it and crop it, or you can save it. And then all I do is drag it into my Google Doc, and then I have a meme that I can use, right? So it's really fun, especially you can make custom stuff for specific students for specific issues. So for me, like for instance, these are my notes. So sometimes I have a lot to say, you can see, right? And then other times, I just don't feel like writing a lot. Yeah, so this one, sorry, it's kind of small. Okay, so I made these videos. And so for instance, you know how students don't always watch the videos that we put all this time into? So this kind of gets them a little more excited because it's more of a preview, or it could be a more fun one. So I made this video about how I structured my essay to provide an example for the students, right? So all I do is click, and then you just link all these memes, right? To whatever, and then, so this is a PowerPoint. And then this one, this was a vid I made on locating sources about eating insects. This is for a food essay. And then down here, I have a food unit in class, and so I challenge the students. I just asked, does anybody want to do a food challenge over the weekend? They just have to try to eat no processed foods for 24 hours, 3 meals, whole foods meals. And so, you know, it gets so super hard, like I failed. I won the challenge, but I was the only one who did it. So I just, again, it's just a Google Doc, right? A little description, and then you just drag your pics into it. So I did all this, and it was really fun. And then I had my little thing here about how I cheated because it was really 48 hours that I ate all 3 of these, not 24. And then this other student, Ruben, he was going to do it, but he let me down. So, but that's one. And then this was tied to some content. But then for week 4, for instance, I really wanted to emphasize that their essay was due, you know? So I didn't want them to think about anything else except for the essay. So for week 4, you know, that kind of meme. Like, don't forget to reread the requirements, right?
Isn't that wonderful?
And then I try to give a quiz hint every week, so this is just another fun way to deliver a quiz hint, right? And this stuff just takes a second. Like I said, I made the new one while during Jake's. So that's that. And then Jake, where's Jake? I just wanted to share the question about what do you do for students with disabilities? So there's a really cool app called QuickQ, Q-U-I-K, I believe is the name of it. Q-U-I-K, yeah. Yeah. The icon looks like that. So if you know Quick is for videos, Q-U-I-K. And then, do most of us know about Canva to generate graphics and whatnot? So you can download the Canva app on your phone, right? And then you can make really cool stuff while you're in the bathroom, right? So you just make all these graphics, right? And then you just dump it into Quick, and then you can make super like fun videos with it on your phone, and then you just export it to your drive. But it's an option for students that, you know, you want to make like a video essay. And so I made one back when I was getting ready for PG&E stuff because I was chairing it. And so I made this. But it's like, it can, in the same period, the student could download it, make the stuff on Canva. By the end of the period, they can make a trailer for something, you know, like an assignment or an ad. You could do an ad activity or something like that. So this might be a good option for students with disabilities. Yeah, I'm excited about that.
Yeah, cool.
That's exactly what CPC was like when I was on it. We were always like,
Any questions? Okay.
awesome. Thanks, Chad. All right. Anybody inspired?
Wait, actually, I have a super quick question.
Yeah,
You mentioned
yeah.
doing so much stuff on your phone. Do you do a lot of prep for your class on your phone?
Yeah, like, I know more. So, some of you know, I lived up in LA in Pasadena, so my commutes are long, right? And I'll have a Google Doc open sometimes, and I'll just I'll record, what do you call it, the Transcriber tool or whatever it is. I'll just talk, and then when I get to work, I have all these notes, and then I just have to kind of finalize and stuff like that. So I do that, and then graphics I'll do on my phone. I'll use Canva. If I'm doing big Canva images, then I'll use my computer. But if they're smaller, kind of playful things, then I can use my phone. It just exports it, you know, to your phone. Then you can send it to your drive or whatever you need it. Yeah. So I use that, and then the video stuff as well. But I'm able to generate a lot of stuff fast, you know, with it. And so it's been helpful. Yeah. Megan?
Is it pretty user friendly?
Quick. Oh yeah. So
Sounds like a lot
the
of
great
work.
thing about Quick is I mean, I think it's fairly attractive and decent looking, and it only has about 10 templates that you can work with. So they're not overwhelmed with choices. Yeah, and then you can swap out the music and things like that, but basically they're packaged kind of professional looking templates. You just dump stuff into it and then it spits it out, and the technology or whatever is sophisticated where it tries to sync up images to the music points. So they don't have to move stuff around really. They just pick the duration of the video. So if they want it 30 seconds versus a minute, then, you know, it'll transition a little bit differently. Yeah, so it's really user friendly. Yeah.
This is a question kind of occurring. Do we have time for that? Do we have time for him to like a minute to show us how he organizes the course content?
Sure.
I mean, I don't know if there's another person or not.
Yeah, so we have 4 minutes. What do you mean by course
Just
content?
the doors.
Yeah.
You know, and then how does that?
Mhm. Yeah. It's actually, and if you log into Canvas, that I can show my thing in a minute.
As I said, my classes, it's not like Tony and Curry. I think they have more seamless transitions into their content. You know, mine's really just a shell, so it's kind of like shiny exterior with like not the hottest engine. I think the way that Curry, Tony's stuff is built out, you know, students interact with it maybe more meaningfully, effectively, but I try to keep it really simple. It's just easier for me to manage it, you know, honestly. So this is like when they start the course, they get a video from me, and then just navigating the course in 3 steps. So start with the syllabus, read the notes, and then go into the module, right? So this was created on Canva, right? So I just took a quick info with Canva. Yeah, just a simple image, add the text, export, and then I use it in this stuff, yeah. And then when you're here, so the syllabus looks like this. So they'll go to the schedule, right? So it looks something like this. They get a sense what's due, what they need to do, some reflection questions, things like that. And then they'll actually dive into the module, and it's just standard modules stacked.
Can I ask when there are assignments, etc., populating Canvas for them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because they have due dates and stuff. But what I have to really emphasize with the students is that readings don't pop up in the calendar. It's stuff that's assigned points that has a deadline. And so if we're reading a memoir, for instance, the memoir assigned readings don't pop up in Canvas, which is why it's really important that they start with the schedule, go into the notes and hints and then go to the module, so they have an idea of what we're doing.
If you assign it 0 points, it makes it pop.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I know it's super annoying.
Yeah.
Right.
But
It's like a step you add next semester or whatever, like you kind of get there. Yeah.
Then I know I can do that, but then it gives them one more reason not to check the schedule.
Right.
The schedule has reflection questions that
That's
are
it.
super important.
Yeah.
So I try to reiterate a lot of the ideas in multiple places. So for instance, I write my notes and hints, and then I'll send them an announcement and say, hey, new notes and hints have been posted. But then some of those are also echoed in the syllabus schedule and the reflection questions. So they get this, it's echoed in different places to hopefully, get it to sink in.
Yeah. And if you're being highly responsive like that, to create that assignment and then change this, you'd have to go change that. Because you can put the reflective questions, like the critical thinking questions in the reading assignment that's not worth points.
Right.
But then you've got it in multiple places, which means you have to update it in multiple places. And
And
it's hard to manage.
It's easy to update it just on one Google Doc.
That's right.
And then it's everywhere. And I use certain Google Docs for all of my courses, whether they're on ground or online. My syllabus schedule is different, but for a lot of the notes and hints, for instance, that's used across for all my classes.
The only other thing that you might do is you can embed the Google Doc.
Into the,
So if the assignment has a due date but not worth points, and when they click on it, what they see is your notes and hints,
Right.
then you're only updating one thing.
Right.
They'll have to scroll down to find the right place, but at least it's,
Yeah.
But anyway,
So I haven't done that, but I know that we can do that.
right, yeah, it's possible. Cool. So before you log out, two things I'll show really, really fast. I know we're out of time. So for Canvas, I've noticed going from one semester to the next, it's pretty good at copying a course over, but there are some things like you'll always notice like these many errors occurred. I just found this out the other day. If you, at the end of any Canvas course, type in /link_validator, you can click that button and it goes through your whole course and it says, okay, we found a link that's going to go out to another Canvas course that these students don't have access to, so it won't work. Or it'll say, there's an image on this one page that the file for it is in another course that you own, so you're seeing the image, but a student that's not in that course won't see the image. And it just gives you this huge list and it says, here's the page. Well, I'm just saying, I know, just to kind of like,
at the end of the semester.
yeah, for tidying up, this is a really, it's just one space. You just kind of go down and just a checklist of things. So that's cool. The other thing I wanted to share is, I know, so students are interacting with our courses with lots of different devices and uploading a lot of different documents. And you've probably encountered this where you go to read something and it's in pages and you can't see it, right? So there is a resource called CloudConvert. It's free, you don't download anything, this is all cloud-based. And what you do is you find a file. Let's just see if I can find a random one on here. I'm not going to be able to. Anything. Shoot. Anyway, so I'm not going to be able to, I'll let you play with it, but it's really simple. So you find the file, it's in pages, and then the next thing to open up, it just says, what do you want to convert it to? And so you say DocX, and then this little progress bar ticks away, and then it says, here's your file. You open it up, and then it's a doc. And it works for anything, like even weird stuff. They're like, I don't know how to open this. You're like, okay, put it in here. What do you want to convert it to? Doc. And then you can get to it. Right, so I think this is it's an access, a way to sort of promote access, right? Because I think if we lock down, that's one way. I'm only going to accept PDFs. Then on the student's end, you create a situation where they've got to figure out how to convert to a PDF. With this, you can accept anything. And then when you encounter that student, you can open it, read it, give feedback, and then tell them, hey, here's how you turn in a PDF. Next time I can give you better commentary. That's my preferred mechanism, whatever it is, right? So, but for our end, this I think is helpful.
I've used some conversion tools like this in the past, especially converting PDF to Word.
Yeah.
It does some, when you try to,
Right.
it messes up the formatting, and then when you try to edit it, it suddenly skews everything to the left.
Yeah.
Is this pretty
It's
good?
pretty good. Yeah,
Okay.
I haven't really noticed too many issues with fidelity like that. But again, usually because I do all my feedback in SpeedGrader, this won't let me give feedback in SpeedGrader, but I can, if it's doc, I can do that kind of annotation and then email it to him and say, next time, please this, so I can do it in SpeedGrader. But you know, for that initial, I think I don't get to skip that person, and they're just frustrated.
I'll plug Audacity there too. It'll import any audio file, export any, and convert it into any other audio file. So it's really cool. It'll go MP4 to MP3 to WAV to the more obscure ones. So it works out well too.
I think, so I have like a wish for a follow-up event like this, in which it would be focused on using technology to give feedback.
Yeah.
I think that'd be
Cool. Yeah, let's do it. So that's all we have for today. Thank you so much for participating. Like I said, if you shared today and have links, please email those to me. And next week I'll kick out this archive and all those links. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's fun.